Imagine this. You are standing on a long stone wall at the end of the world. The rocks beneath your sandals are as cold as ice. Your breath leaves your mouth in white mist. And the wind. The wind cuts through your thick wool cloak like a knife. On the far side of the wall, there is only darkness. Wet forest. Marsh. Broken branches. Somewhere far away, faint voices of tribes you don't understand. Enemies you cannot see, only feel. Behind you lies everything you call civilization. Hot baths, crowded markets, marble temples, law, coins, writing. And one name, Rome. In front of you there is only a black horizon, freezing air. And one simple order. Hold the wall. Do not let the line break. Tonight, on this strip of stone they call Hadrian's Wall, one Roman soldier will discover that in books, empires feel like iron. But when you are the one standing on the wall, the entire empire feels like it's balanced on just a few pairs of tired, sleepless eyes. This is the story of one of those soldiers. A man called Marcus Aelius Syrianus. Marcus was not from this cold, wet land called Britannia. He had been born far to the south, in a small town of the province of Syria, where dust rises in the streets, palm trees cast long shadows, and the night smell of spices and burning charcoal. As a boy, whenever he heard the name Rome, he imagined golden pillars, white buildings, great victory parades. He never imagined that serving Rome would mean guard duty on frozen stones, on a wall at the edge of nowhere. Inside the wooden barracks, a small oil lamp burned, its flame shaking as the wind pushed through the gaps in the walls. The light drew nervous shadows on the smoke-blackened beams above. The cold was so sharp that every breath turned into a small cloud of white fog. Marcus sat on a low stool, his wool cloak wrapped tightly around his shoulders, a wax tablet in his lap, and a wooden stylus in his hand. He was writing slowly, murmuring the words under his breath, as if his mother were sitting in front of him and he was practicing how to read the letter aloud. "To my mother, Flavia," he whispered. "The wind here never stops, mother. Do you remember when we were children, we begged the gods for just a little cool breeze on hot nights? It feels like the gods took all those prayers and answered them, in this one miserable place." On the bunk above him, his bunkmate Gaius rolled over with a groan. A broad-shouldered soldier with a red, cold-bitten nose, half his face buried in a blanket. Gaius muttered, "Still writing that letter? If your mother ever reads all that, she'll know this damn wall better than the emperor himself, Marcus." Marcus smiled a little, but he didn't look up from the tablet. "If I die here," he said quietly, "at least she'll know where her son's bones turned to dust." Gaius opened one eye, a sleepy grin spreading on his face. "You're not going to die," he said. "Not here. In this where even the barbarians are sitting by their fires telling stories. No one is stupid enough to attack on a night like this." Outside, a strong gust of wind hit the wall. The wooden planks of the barracks creaked, the lamp flame shivered, and somewhere out in the fort, a horn sounded once. Not an alarm. Just the signal for a changing of the watch. Marcus dipped his stylus again, and scratched more lines into the wax. "We live on a long stone wall, built by the Emperor Hadrian. They say it cuts Britannia in two. To the south, Rome's law. To the north, forest, marsh, and people we call barbarians. Sometimes, standing here in the middle, I don't know which side I belong to, mother." At that moment, the barracks door opened with a long creak, and a blast of freezing air slapped the room. A young auxiliary soldier stumbled in, his cheeks red from the cold, breath steaming. "Marcus," he said between breaths, "Centurion wants you at the north gate. Says he needs your tongue." Marcus pushed the tablet under his blanket, stood up slowly, and tightened his cloak around himself. "The little trader again," he murmured. The auxiliary grinned. "Yeah, your Briton friend. Says he brought cheese. And news heavier than cheese." Stepping outside, Marcus' breath caught in his throat. The wind slapped his face like a whip. On top of the walls, torches flickered wildly, their flames shaking like nervous eyes in the night. Near the small postern gate on the northern side, A local trader named Owain stood waiting. He wore a rough wool cloak, held the reins of a small, shaggy pony, with ice clinging to his mustache and that particular glint in his eyes that belongs to men who know both sides of a border very well. Marcus, Owain called in broken Latin. Romans get slower every year. I'll be an old man by the time your gate opens. Marcus gave him a tired half-smile. And you Britons get poorer every year, Owain, he replied. You used to bring wine. Now it's just cheese. Owain patted his sack. Tonight I bring something worth more than wine, he said. News. In the forests of the north, there is movement. New campfires at night. My cousins say some of the tribes are talking again. Too many hungry mouths, too few cattle, and your Roman tax. Heavy footsteps approached. Centurion Lucius Varro stepped into the torchlight, wrapped in a wolfskin cloak, face crossed by old battle scars like dry riverbeds. Lucius fixed his hard eyes on Owain, then spoke in a steady, low voice to Marcus. Ask him, is he selling stories tonight, or giving a real warning? Marcus translated the question into the local tongue. The smile slowly drained from Owain's face. He glanced over Marcus' shoulder, into the black shape of the northern hills, then looked back at him. Both, he said at last. Your coin is good. But if the tribes come, this little trade of mine on both sides of your wall will end in blood. A thin chill that had nothing to do with the wind ran down Marcus' spine. How many? He asked quietly. Owain lifted his shoulders. Not a great army, he said, but enough hands to touch the wall and see if it is still awake. Above them, the wind rushed over the battlements, howling like laughter from the north. Lucius' eyes narrowed. Double the watch on the north side, he said, voice like iron. Tonight, as long as I draw breath, no one sleeps on my wall. A little while later, night lay fully across the land. The sky was a deep, heavy black, with just a dusting of pale gray near the horizon. Marcus now stood atop the wall, boots firm on the damp, icy stones, shield on his arm, long spear in his hand. Below him, in the ditch, rows of sharpened wooden stakes shone with frost in the torchlight. Beyond that, nothing could be seen clearly, just layers and layers of darkness. Somewhere inside the fort behind him, a dog barked once, then went silent. Gaius shuffled up beside Marcus, his armor giving a faint metallic shiver with each step. So, poet, Gaius said with a crooked smile, what are you thinking about now? Another letter to your mother, or some great philosophy about Rome? Marcus kept his eyes on the darkness beyond the wall. I'm just thinking, he said slowly, how strange it is that in the histories they say Rome rules the world. But up here on this wall, the whole world feels about as big as the reach of this torchlight and the stretch of stone two men can guard. Gaius exhaled hard, white mist blowing out in front of him, and chuckled. Rome is far away, Marcus. Here the only truth is this rock, this wind, this watch, and the question, are we awake or not? The rest is for books. For a few moments, they both fell silent. Only the wind's whistle, the soft crackle of the torch, and somewhere far off, the faint call of an unknown animal. Then Marcus stiffened. You hear that? He whispered. Gaius turned his head slightly, tilting his ear towards the darkness. At first there was nothing. Then, from beyond the ditch, the soft snap of a twig. The dull sound of weight on damp earth. As if someone, or several someones, were moving very carefully near the base of the wall. Marcus stepped closer to the parapet, leaned forward, and stared into the black. Who's there? He shouted in Latin. Then again in the local tongue. His voice was swallowed by the wind. For a few heartbeats, everything went still. Then, from below, came muffled whispers. A curse. A low laugh. The clink of metal brushing stone. Gaius bared his teeth. They're testing the ditch, he said under his breath. Wake the tower, Marcus. Marcus raised the horn to his lips and blew with all his strength. The sound was harsh and sharp, ripping through the night and racing out across the dark hills. At once, the fort woke. Torches flared up along the wall. Boots thundered on stone. Armor clanged. Orders flew through the air in Latin. Centurion Lucius reached them within moments, wolfskin snapping in the wind, eyes like black stones. "What did you see, Marcus?" he demanded. "Movement in the ditch," Marcus replied. "Not just one man. Several. Very close." Lucius stepped to the parapet and peered down. The torchlight barely reached the ditch. He saw nothing at first. Then, for a heartbeat, something flashed into view. The curve of a wooden shield. The faint gleam of a helmet. Then nothing. Back into the black. Lucius' voice turned to steel. "You were right. Archers," he shouted. "To the wall. No one looses an arrow until I give the word." Soldiers moved into position, bows up, strings stretching, muscles tight. The wind carried with it the faint smell of smoke and sweat from somewhere out in the unseen forest. Marcus' heart hammered against his ribs. His fingers tightened on his spear until they hurt. Lucius watched, eyes locked on the darkness below. 1 moment. 2. 3. Suddenly, from below, a stone whistled through the air and smashed into the parapet right beside Marcus' face. Chips of rock stung his cheek. "Loose!" Lucius roared. Dozens of arrows hissed over the wall and vanished into the night. From the ditch came a cry, a short scream of pain, then a wave of angry shouts. Another stone flew. Then another. Someone below yelled something in their own tongue, half insult, half challenge. This was no full assault. This was a question. How awake is your wall? How long can your men stand against cold and fear without breaking? Marcus raised his shield. Stones clattered against it, and the impact rang in his arm. Gaius laughed, but there was a wild edge to it. "See, Marcus," he shouted over the noise. "You said you wanted to tell your mother exactly where you died. Maybe tonight's the night you finish that letter." Marcus spat, trying to get the taste of fear off his tongue. "Not yet," he growled. "I haven't finished writing." The trade of arrows and stones went on and on. The men below never fully showed themselves. They slipped in and out of the ditch, ducking behind bushes, shouting insults, throwing rocks, and then running back into the trees. This was not an attack. This was a test. Lucius kept his men under control. "Don't waste arrows," he barked. "Do not shoot at ghosts. Make them work for every stone. Make them see we do not frighten so easily." Slowly, the storm of stones began to fade. The shouting retreated, voices slipping back into the forest like smoke on the wind. After a while, only the wind remained. Gaius lowered his shield and let out a long breath. "That's it," he said. "All that noise just to throw rocks at us?" Lucius stared out into the dark, jaw tight. "They were counting torches," he said quietly. "Listening to how we move. Watching how quickly we answer. How quickly we anger. Next time, they'll be smarter." He turned to Marcus. "You did well tonight," Lucius said. "If your horn hadn't sounded, half this wall would still be sleeping. Remember this night, Marcus. There will be worse." Marcus nodded, though his legs were still shaking. Lucius walked away. Gaius nudged Marcus with his elbow. "So," he said, "you said you weren't sure which side you belonged to." Marcus looked north again, to the black forest, to the distant unseen fires, to the land of tribes. Then he turned his gaze south, to the dim lights inside the fort, to the barracks, to the few dozen men holding the name of Rome on this spine of stone. "I belong to the stone under my feet," he said at last, quietly. "For now, that's enough." Just before dawn, the sky began to lighten, turning from black to a dull, ashy blue. The cold hadn't changed, but the darkness felt less heavy. The morning horn sounded. The watch changed. Some men came down from the wall, others went up to replace them. Marcus returned to the barracks, body aching with exhaustion, and sat once more in front of his little wax tablet. He picked up the stylus and wrote the final lines to his mother. Mother. Tonight they came. From the dark they shouted, through stones, cursed our names. They called out to Rome's wall. We answered with arrows and iron. The wall still stands. I do not know how long Rome will hold this land. I do not know if one day this wall will stand empty, its torches cold, our names forgotten and lost in the dust. But as long as we stand on this wall, these stones, this wind, this night, are witnesses that Rome is still here. He signed, your son, Marcus Aelius Syrianus. He blew gently on the tablet, as if his breath could carry the words thousands of miles south to the warm streets of Syria and into his mother's hands. At that moment, from beyond the wall, the wind rose again, rushing along the battlements. And very far away, very faint, a horn answered. Not a Roman horn this time. A tribal horn. An answer to the night's little test. And a quiet promise that the real story had not even begun yet. Because on this cold wall, at the edge of the world, the stones might be Roman, but time always belongs to the tribes. And the few stones thrown tonight were only the first knock on Rome's door. No empire can live on its walls forever. And the next time, when the horns call across these hills, this wall might not just be tested. It might truly shake.